and welcome to the Menopause Mindshift Self-Love Podcast, where we are inspiring women in menopause to unleash their inner queen, write their own story, and define their own menopause journey. I am your host, the Menopause Queen, Lisa R. Triggs, certified menopause coach, certified neuroscience coach, motivational speaker, and best-selling author of The Menopause Mindshift, How I Unleashed My Inner Queen, and you can too. This is a space for real, honest conversations about menopause, because menopause isn't just about hormones. It's neurological, it's emotional, and it's deeply personal. After 20 years of navigating menopause, I've learned that what most women are missing isn't more information, it's a different way of seeing themselves. And in this podcast, we talk about what's really happening in your body, your brain, and the tools that support you in feeling better. You'll hear from inspiring guests, as well as the insights and perspective shifts that changed everything for me. Because self-love in menopause isn't a luxury, it's the foundation. So if you are ready to think differently about menopause, reconnect with yourself, and define your own journey, you are in the right place. Sometimes the moments that nearly break us become the very moments that awaken us. And when women choose healing, courage, and self-worth, they don't just change their own lives. They inspire others to believe transformation is possible too. Today on the Menopause Mindshift Self-Love Podcast, I'm joined by Sharmeen Baria, a psychology and social work professional, author, and coach who has dedicated her life to helping others feel deeply seen, heard, and supported. Through her work and personal journey, she inspires women to reconnect with their inner strength, trust themselves, and recognize their own worth and power. Her mission is to help women become the heroes of their own story and create lives built on freedom, self-worth, and possibility. Hello, and welcome to the Menopause Mindshift Self-Love Podcast, where we are inspiring women to unleash their inner queen, write their own story, define their own journey. I am your host, the Menopause Queen, Lisa R. Triggs, certified menopause coach, motivational speaker, and best-selling author. Welcome, Sharmeen, to the Self-Love Podcast. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Lisa, and everybody who will be listening to our podcast. I'm really happy and excited to be here today.
So let's start by you telling us what it is that you do.
Yes, so thank you, Lisa, for asking. So I've been a social worker for almost 32 years. So helping others has been in my DNA ever since I was a young child. I left the hospital setting in about 2019, and my passion now is to coach women mostly, especially women who have been in relationships that didn't work out for them. Many of them have been in an abusive relationship. And so my passion is to help guide them through their journey. I've been in a situation similar to theirs, so it's my own story, and my brand is Free to Be Me. And so I love to empower women to understand that there is life after a breakup, a life after having the courage to leave a relationship that was not serving them, no matter how many years they were in that relationship that kept them small and stuck. And biggest gift that I've given to myself also, and I'm learning along the whole process, is the gift of self-love. Because when we start learning to love ourselves again, we really understand that who we truly are at our essence, our true nature is love. And other people, when they keep us small in relationships that didn't work out, we tend to lose ourselves. And so I'm helping the woman remind her who she is at her true level, and also helping her express herself freely. So when we free up our voice, women can speak for the first time many times and can see their truth that was buried for years and years, decades sometimes. And then from that space, they can start reframing their own lives. Like, how do they want to re-envision their life. And my goal is to help them and be their guide, holding them side by side and not trying to talk over them, but just seeing them, witnessing them as they're unfolding into their own journey. And for me, that transformation towards the end is the greatest gift because it touches someone and touches me the most at the very deepest level of someone's core and soul. And so that makes a big difference for me to see them unfurl their wings and start flying away like a butterfly.
I love it. I love it. And can, of course, can resonate with it because I'm on a similar mission of encouraging women to start with themselves first, discover self love. So I think that's amazing. What does it look like in a first session with you or something like that when somebody reaches out to you? What's the process?
So the first time that someone reaches out to me, I like to see if we are a good fit. And I do a discovery call first, and then we go into the first call just to see if this is something that's going to work well with both of us. Because I want the woman that's coming in to feel motivated and someone who really is ready to start making a change. Because you can be the greatest coach on earth, but if somebody is not willing to shift or change, it's not going to work for them and it's just not going to be helpful. But the most important thing is, I just be want the women to be seen first and foremost. Like there is no judgment. So I always make sure that there's a sacred, quiet space where they feel seen and heard. And then from there, we just start asking important questions like, what's important to this woman? Because every woman's journey is so different. Some of them are still in their small, scared self. They don't know what the whole world looks like because they've always felt like a tiny drop. And this whole world is just moving along and they feel stuck, or they are like for the first time, like, I'm free now, but I don't know what to do. And I've been there. And so it can be very scary. And so I just want to gently remind her that we need to find out in what season of life she is. And I always feel like all of us go through life not in a linear fashion, although Western culture wants us to think like life is going from point A to point B and all the way till Z, whatever, from one end to the other. But I, being born in Pakistan too, I feel like life is goes into cycles and rhythms and things like that. So you can find out, for me, it's like, is this woman in the early stages? Is she in spring? Is she just starting out, having left this relationship? So she's really new, doesn't know what to expect, like a tiny bud that's afraid to open up. But
Hmm.
then if you go into the month of summer, it's like growth. You learn, like, okay, what are you going to leave behind? And it's okay. It's like her letting go of her old identity, which can be very, very scary,
Hmm.
and they are letting go of the identity, but then what are they going to replace it with? And so that image has to be more positive than what they're leaving behind. So there's the motivation and inspiration to leave. And so they can see themselves, okay, I'm like this little tiny bud right now, but there's always this possibility for me to bloom. And you start blooming a little bit, one petal at a time. I tell them it's not just whole thing, because the beauty of the flower is not going to be like all at one time. So nature gives us things in revelations, little by little. So it's like a mystery unfolding, and you feel like, hey, there's more to this story than I initially thought. We don't know
Hmm.
the full picture, I think, on purpose. I think that's the divine way of us moving forward in life. And then they go through, like, summer months would be like growth, going into fall. Sometimes they have to let go. And then they need to realize that if I'm going to start blooming and I'm starting to take up space, I need to start making peace with what I'm leaving behind as well. So as they start leaving, like the leaves falling off, it's like the burden's been dropping over. And then they go into their winter that I see is like the wisdom years, where they're fresh, they're bare naked like a tree. It's like all the leaves have fallen, they've been to the bloom, and now it's time to just complete that cycle and start a fresh cycle all over again. So they can stand in their own power, their own beauty. And the reason I say that is we had a hurricane couple of years, I mean, some time ago, and quite a few trees in our neighborhood were destroyed, and it was just a mess. And we live in like really like wooded area, like a lot of trees and stuff, and I love trees. And I remember coming from work, tired as heck, working from the hospital, driving, and I was stuck at the stop signal light. I'm like looking at all the trees fallen, and like I don't know what's going on. And there was this one tree had no leaves, just a bare trunk and the branches. And I was getting frustrated, like, come on, let's go with the signal light. And then I remember the sun just setting. And it just felt beautifully the reflection on the tree trunk. And I saw
Mm.
for the first time that you can be totally bare, naked, but you can still have that beauty. You still have that strength to just stand firmly, planted, rooted in your nakedness, in your vulnerability. And I
Mm.
think that's where the winter of life for me is like the wisdom that the women accumulate. Like the queen, like you see your crown. It's like finally putting the crown back and saying, I can now be the queen of my own life. I don't need permission from others. I don't need validation for myself. I don't need to play small. I can just be messy, be real rather than perfect, and just plod along and just live life fully. And I think once you commit to that, I've noticed that things start opening up again, even though you felt like nothing's going to move forward
Yeah.
and things start to move forward. But if you have the intention, like I'm going to make it on my own and I'm going to start rising.
I think you're very brave and courageous for what you did, being able to leave the situation you were in and now helping other women to be able to do the same. So tell me about your book.
Yeah, so I actually always wanted to write a book. When I left my husband, it's been almost like 17, 20, almost like 19 years now. And I just reached out to a lady because I she had written a book. Sorry, she had written a book. And so I loved her last name. Her last name was Puma, Gabby Puma. And I remember on my 50th birthday, me and my friend had gone to Peru. And we had gone through this initiation with the shamans and stuff, and they talked about the Puma is the direction of the West where you let go of all your own identities and this and that. And I already left my husband back then, but it just brought everything up. So when I reached out to her, she said, I'm doing another book project and I'd like to welcome you over. And it's like, oh, this is my time to write this book. I've never done anything before. And so she said, I'm powerful. And I'm like, at that point, I didn't feel powerful at all. And I'm like, I don't know what to write. I just don't know. And she's like, write about your story.
Hmm.
And when I started writing, something shifted in me. The story, it was just, it was an anthology. So the
Mm.
story wrote itself. I mean, I literally in like less than 2 months, I was sitting there and every Sunday I would just write and words would just pour out, emotions would pour out, tears would pour out. It was
Oh.
very healing. And I
Hmm.
wrote it and wrote the book, and then it became the international #1 best-selling authors list. I was really excited, like, oh, my first thing, and this is something great and stuff. And it didn't phase me. It's like, okay, great, wrote it, did it. But it wasn't until a month later when I actually picked up the book one Sunday afternoon and I said, let me just read this book because I already knew what the story was about. But when I actually held the book and opened the pages, the kids were not at home. I was by myself having this cup of tea and looking out the window, and I read. And when I read it from the reader's perspective, the story touched me in a very different way because it was like I was reading somebody else's story, even though it was my own. But the mindset from which I was reading shifted. Something shifted in me very radically in an emotional way. And I just loved that I didn't want to put the book down. Like I didn't want to I was just kept reading. And it's like, okay, yeah, this is something important. And the impact wasn't felt until I started getting calls from my friends and other people saying that they've never cried so much reading my story. They never knew that I was going through so much behind closed doors. And I always felt like I had to keep this facade of being strong and stuff like that. Also, partly because I was working in healthcare and I was always afraid that if I ever left my husband or if I left or if I showed vulnerability or weakness, maybe they would take my social work license away or somebody could complain that she's emotionally unstable or wouldn't be able to. So that was a fear at the back of my mind. It was probably unrealized fear, but it
Yeah.
was the truth. And it
Yeah.
wasn't until I started talking to another friend of mine. We were in graduate school together. We had our two jobs together. And it wasn't until I informed her that she started crying and she said, Charmeen, I know how you feel because she said when we were in graduate school, I was going through my divorce. I didn't want anybody to know that. And
Mm.
for the longest time, I didn't tell. For 7, 10 years, I was working. I would have bruises on my arms and things, and I had lab coat on. And I just felt like the total fraud many times, like giving advice to women who would come to me. And I'm like, I'm one of you, but I just don't know how to say it. And I learned so much from other women as well because of their own story. I remember one lady telling me about, oh, remember, like, I'm divorced. I mean, like, she was trying to separate from her husband. And she's like, I was told not to ever get a restraining order, get a protective order. That's more important. So these were things that God was kind of laying out with me in bits and pieces, bits and pieces. And then when I finally decided to leave, all of those experiences came together. And I was like, God was putting those people in front of me to show me that I can do it. And I learned so much. I used to work at Cancer Hospital, MD Anderson Cancer Center. And I learned something most important from my patients. I worked on the head and neck cancer unit where people couldn't speak. So their
Mm.
voices were compromised. So they had to write and they had to communicate. And I also had to adapt so I could understand where they were coming from, their fears about surgery, from having their voice box removed and having all sorts of stuff. But one thing that I learned from them was that their courage. They would tell me, I never knew I was this strong. I never knew I could be this strong and go through all of this. And that stuck with me. And so when I finally decided that it was time to leave my husband, I still remember the day that I knew that I only had one more week in the house because I was going to leave. And I was writing a poem and I was just writing it. And it was just very difficult for me to write, saying like goodbye to this world that I'd known, seen, and what future would hold. I had no clue. I had 7-year-old and a 5-year-old. And I thought I'd have to be mom and dad. But the good thing was I had strong support from my parents who were elderly. And they told me one time, like, look, if you have to leave, leave now while we're in our 60s, because once we get into our 80s, it's going to be impossible for us to help you.
Yeah.
And that stuck with me. And then I took the plunge. I said, okay, this is it. And so many things, so many strangers came in my path that I think I started seeing them as signs from God, signs from heaven, saying, okay, it's time, move, move. And so I just took the plunge and didn't look back, although it was a hard journey. Still is from time to time, but it's a beautiful journey because it's my own. It's my journey of freedom, and there's nothing else like freedom. Like, we truly take freedom for granted. It's not until you take your first breath knowing that there's nobody breathing down your throat, nobody asking you to do something you don't want to do, and you can do it the way you want to do it and not being answerable to anybody. So I want every woman to know that there is hope out there. You just have to find yourself surrounded by like-minded women or women who are just willing to help out, and find yourselves a community, because that is very important, because I did everything by myself. And half the time, even my best friends did not know what was going on. They said, Sharmeen, how, I don't know how you came to the parties with husband, how you did all this, and how you just took on. And it was hard. I had punctured rib, a broken rib. I've had my knee shattered, not shattered, but my meniscus torn. I've had bruises. I had a lot of stuff going through, and I just couldn't tell anybody what I was going through. And so there was a lot of heartache and pain, and didn't want my parents to really go through any of that. And again, being born in Pakistan, it was cultural. And so I
Mm.
didn't want to be the first one in my family to divorce, and me also being a woman, divorce a man. So there's a lot of stuff, all this crazy stuff. And I'm like, forget it, heck with everything. I'm going to do it my way this time around. And I just took the plunge. My sister was the first one that said, I know something's not right. You need to leave. And my husband took us all the way to Colorado. And I was completely isolated over there. The beating started more, the frequency in fights were happening more, and the abuse was getting more and more, not just physical, but emotional and psychological, even sexual from time to time. And so it was just scary. I did not know what to do until my sister said, if not, I'm going to come and just take you and the kids. I'm like, no, because that's considered kidnapping. We'll figure out a way. And then he wanted us to, my mom had told me a long time ago, like, if you don't want him to do something, just whatever he wants, you just disagree. And the more you disagree, the more he'll do. So he wanted to keep saying that, oh, I want to go to, let's just go to back home to Houston. We were in Colorado Springs. And I knew that he was just playing with me. And I said, no, I love Colorado Springs. Away from family, we get to do what we need to do, blah, blah. The more I said that, this man behind my back started sending resumes to hospitals in Houston because he's wanted me to get a job here. And so they were planning a trip to India with his mom and the kids. And I had this nagging feeling. I didn't want him to take the kids because I knew that something was just telling me that maybe I may not see the kids, or he would take the kids. I don't know what. But my intuition kept saying it again and again and again. And so I said, no, I'm not interested. Finally, I got a job. And so he said, go at least interview. And then my mom's coming and blah, blah, blah. So I got the job, but I never told him that I had the job. And my whole plan was to luckily come to Houston. And God was just great because I went on a Friday to interview and I told them I'd like to know soon because if you offering me the position, I'd like to give 2 weeks notice to my other employer in Colorado Springs. They called me at 5:30. I left the interview at 1. They called me at 5:30 and said, we're offering the position. But I didn't tell him. And my husband at that time quietly didn't tell me. He had put the house, he told me he was going to put the house on sale. The following day, somebody came and bought the house. And I don't know, as luck would have it, it was the physical therapist that I used to work in the hospital. She was
Mm,
telling me, oh, we are going to move into our new home. And I said, oh, good. I'm leaving very soon and blah, blah, blah. And I said, well, where's the home? And she said, Agate Street. And I'm like, gave the address. And she said, oh, yeah. I said, that's my home. And I don't know how God did that, but she got the house. We got $30,000 more. And at that time, my husband was always looking at money. So he's like, oh, okay. When I got back on Monday, he's like, oh, the house is sold now. I said, you already sold the house without telling me? And he had not told me, but I found out on Monday when I went to work on Monday.
right.
And I didn't tell him that I knew the lady that the house was purchased. So I said, keep my mouth shut, just keep having faith in God. And then I think it was 1 month later that we had a chance to move back to Houston. And that's when I decided that I was going to leave him because nothing changed. It was just more violence and stuff like that. And I said, I need to get going, get out of the house because I
Yeah.
could not see my kids, especially my son. He used to beat me in front of the kids sometimes, and he was only 5 and covering under the bed and stuff. And I'm like, I'm
Oh,
not going to put the kids through any of this.
yeah.
And my first paper was about domestic violence and what the trauma that can happen to women. And I got an A on that paper. I'm like, yeah, I'm going to be a badass woman and not let any man treat me like that. And it was just a subtle thing being married to a narcissist. It was just like gentle here and there and, creating self doubt in you. And you think you're going nuts. Literally, I thought I was going nuts. And you're thinking, like, here, I have a master's degree and I have this, I've done years of work and I've done, how can this be happening to me?
Hmm.
And it's one of the most scariest feeling because you're seeing yourself erase layer by layer, chip by chip, and you're looking at yourself in the mirror. It's like, oh, I look like a defeated woman. I don't know where to go. Financially, they take the money away and all that stuff. And so where do you go? And my husband was like, oh, you won't be able to go anywhere. You can't even sell $2 worth of pencils. I remember all of those things very, very clearly. I'm like, I'm going to show you. I'm going to show you one way or the other.
Good for
And
you.
so this
Good
story
for you.
actually helped me a lot.
And I'm so happy that you had a support system in your parents because like you said about cultural,
Yes, I did mention that in the book too.
that can be a whole other conversation. I think you're very courageous. I think you're very brave. And I think that the book is your story. And to be able to help other women know you can get out, you can have a life afterwards, you can raise your kids. And I believe your kids have flourished. Is one
Yeah.
a lawyer?
Yeah,
Is
my
that
daughter
correct?
she just graduated from law school last year. And then my son, he's working full time for United Airlines as well. And he's finishing his last year now, last semester for first year, and he has one more year left. So next May, he'll be all done. And so I think I've done everything. And so now it's my
As a
turn.
pilot or
No, he's in business administration. He's in operations,
okay. Oh, yeah,
airport
like
operations.
I and getting your kids out of that situation, I'm sure was the absolute best for them. It saddens my heart that your ex was doing this in front of the kids. Now, I think you said you had 2 books, right? Did you write a
Yeah.
solo book or were you part of
No, there
2
was an anthology
anthologies?
as well. So one of the publishers read this book, my first book, and he reached out to me on Facebook. And we were like Facebook friends through another group of people that I knew. And so when he asked me, so this is the first, I don't know if you can see, this is the first book, I'm
Yeah,
Powerful.
yeah.
And so after that, he invited me, this is his book, Whispers of the Heart. So the minute he talked to me about Whispers of the Heart, it was like, yeah, that's something else I want to write. And that was a good thing because it allowed me to really so the first book was about my whole journey, how I left, what was going on, my mindset and all of those things. But the second book was like, what can I do? So I wrote the title Belcore, which means beautiful heart in Italian. And it was like me having a dialogue with my heart, like this heart. I'm asking questions and the heart is coming back and responding. And it's like teaching me along the way what's going on. And there were four themes that kind of emerged. I had no clue. I didn't have an outline. But as I was communicating in my own writing and stuff, there were four major themes. Like I felt like the whispers of the heart always comes in softness. So it's stillness. So you have to be still if you want to listen to your heart. You cannot have the noise dialed up. You have to lower it. You have to slow down, pause. So in stillness, you can literally hear your own voice, your own soul that's trying to speak to you.
Yep.
And from stillness, I felt like you start gaining some trust. And I think this is also important for women's journey. So when you are quiet, you can hear your own truth. When you
Yes.
hear your own truth, you can go into a mode of trusting. You trust
Yes.
yourself more. You feel like I can hopefully listen and start having courage to listen to myself. And so your intuition starts sharpening. And one
Oh,
thing leads to something else. And then when you find someone that you feel like you can open up to, or you find a community that truly embraces you and with all your faults and weakness and everything, then you become vulnerable. You're okay being vulnerable. And that is, I
um,
think, our superpower. When we are vulnerable, we can really kind of break through our facade and we can connect
yes.
someone from soul to soul. I think that's very, very important. And I've always felt
Powerful.
like that has been my greatest gift. Like when I am still and I trust myself and the other woman is in front of me, she starts trusting herself too. And then they
Yes.
start opening up and they become vulnerable and they share their gifts or their pain many times. And I just listen. And then from there, from trust comes faith, knowing that in spite of everything happening around you that may be crumbling or is not what you want, but that if you're strong inside, like your mind is strong, your spirit is strong, like the tree that's deeply rooted, you feel like your body is like the trunk, and as long as your feet are firmly planted inside, you have deeper roots. You can withstand the weather outside that's happening. You can withstand high winds or whatever's coming your way. You can still say, I can do it. I can do it. And each time you say, I can do it, you take one small step towards your dream, one small step towards your freedom, and small step towards becoming whole again. And I think that's the whole thing is to become whole ourselves, find ourselves and look at ourselves through the eyes of love, through the eyes of God, that we are all love and we can do this together in a way, even when nobody believes in us or trusts us or whatever. But you
I
have
love
this.
it. I love that. And it's so inspirational when we sit with ourselves and we have that stillness and we have that quietness. It allows us to process and to think and to go inside ourselves. And then the path kind of opens up. The path opens up and becomes the path forward to be able to say, okay, I know what to do. I know what I need to do. Live my life to the best of its ability. So, are many of your clients in midlife or do they vary in age?
They're different. They're different. Most of I like working with more. Although I've worked with ladies like in their 40s, I think I like from 40s and up. But there are younger women as well. I just help them out. But most of the time, they're so scared. They're not ready. I think. I still make myself available to them. I mean, they're not like coaching or anything like that. But um, most of them are like 50s, 40s, 50s, and then I feel like I think these women are ready because they've seen different phases of their lives. They're more comfortable and willing to be more comfortable and open up. And they're kind of getting into their, like I call them the crone stage, like the more wisdom stage.
Right.
So they
Right.
have learned experiences so they can use those experiences and bring everything from the past to become the woman that they're meant to be. Even
Ex-
though somebody's told, I think as the decades go on, we feel like we are burying ourselves. But I think it is our golden years, I think many times is, or midlife, whatever, is
they
that
don't
we
want
can
to
start
waste it.
kind of
Yeah.
digging ourselves out of it and start seeing, oh, this is who I truly am.
I'm wondering if perhaps the stage of life has anything to do with it because they're entering midlife. So there's changes going on there as well. The opportunity actually might be there more because the children are not there to be able to find that courage within themselves to be able to leave at this time. When the children are younger, you're focused on them and protecting them. and
Yes,
then
that's
they're
so
not
true.
there anymore, they're gone off to college, whatever, then that's your opportunity, I think.
Yeah,
I'm
because
just
I think you're also
guessing.
like an empty nester too in many ways. So you're like, okay, I can now focus myself. Yeah.
You and him,
Yeah. And
right?
I can tell you one thing from experience too, I think, but in a sad way though, the statistics like the longer you stay in an abusive relationship, the greater the impact on the kids.
Right.
So women that don't leave when they should be leaving
Yes. They're passing that on to their kids.
it creates a very indelible mark on the kids as they grow up, seeing relationships not great and stuff. And I knew that from my own training and my own stuff. And I'll tell you, I had attended a conference. I was trying to get certified for anger resolution therapist. I'm like, okay, I'm going to do this. And in that video, I was not sure whether I want to leave my husband or not. But the the instructor, the he was a psychologist. He played a live video of the child who was 14 years old, recorded the fights that were happening daily in the house,
Mm,
and it was presented to the judge at the time to decide whether he was going to stay with the mom, dad, or some other family member. And the amount of argument, that was like a literally a 45-minute recording that he was doing. There was fighting and throwing stuff. And this guy was in the bedroom shaking, recording, and he just did not know what to do, but he had recorded it. And when I listened to that, I'm like, no way in hell am I going to let my kids do that. So I actually walked up to the lady that was presenting also, and I said, I don't know what to do. What is the best thing to do? Because I'm contemplating on leaving my husband. I don't know what to expect, because when you're trying to leave an abusive relationship, sometimes it can be very dangerous for the woman and the
yes.
children as well.
Yes.
But she
Yes.
told me like, well, if you have support, use your support, do what you need to do. And she said, let me tell you one thing, no matter what you do, you just focus on being the best mom to your kids. Don't talk negatively about their father. Don't do this, don't do that, because they themselves will understand. And so I had the courage after a year to leave. And I remembered that when I left, it was really surreal. It was like me, everything was slowing down for me. And I'm like, I remembered my son's face, and I'm like, he deserves better. He does not need to be cowering under a bed or afraid or fearful or anything like that. And you can be free to do yourself. But since then, I've seen so many women, actually, like domestic violence has really gone up right now. And women need to
Yeah.
protect themselves.
I thank you so much for sharing all that with us. Final thoughts that you'd like to share with us.
Yeah, my final thoughts. I think I want to share this because I think this is important. It's from the book I wrote, that I Am Powerful. Let me just see where it is. So basically, towards the end, I was writing, and I want everybody to close their eyes, whoever's listening. So you can close your eyes, Lisa, if you wanted to. And this is basically what I wrote. And towards the end, it says, as I close my eyes to experience my newer and freer version of my transformed being and look deeply into my soul, I hear the following words emerge from spirit, nudging me to honor and reclaim my metamorphosis. And as I was writing, these were just channeled words that came. So if you want, I want you to close your eyes for a second. Just
Sure.
relax it for a second. And it says, so spirit nudging me to honor and reclaim my metamorphosis. And this is what spirit says. It says, close your eyes and look within your soul, for therein lies the purpose of your being. I want you to know how much I respect and admire you for your smile, your intelligence, open-heartedness, compassion, integrity, courage, generosity, loyalty, love, kindness, selflessness, and ability to breathe life everywhere you go. I do not want you to ever doubt how powerful and beautiful you are in person and in spirit. You are the light that helps others come out of their dark places and woundedness so they too can shine and see the light like you at the end of the tunnel. And so, with these above sentiments, I begin this new chapter of my life, anchored in self love, acceptance, and freedom. My wish for you is that you will always remember how powerful you are, and that you will never underestimate the untapped potential that lies hidden within you. Always look within to find your truth and lead a soulful life, for therein lies your power to set yourself free.
That's powerful.
Thank you.
That's powerful. Thank you for sharing that. And thank you for joining us today. We'll put Sharmeen's contact info in the description below. So anyone watching or listening, if you'd like to connect with Sharmeen or engage with her, we'll have those links below. Thank you again. And as always, I sign off every podcast with, please remember to choose self-love first. Bye for now.